Welcome to Expressions of Leadership, a podcast showcasing the many faces of leadership. I'm your host, Michele Kawamoto Perry. From teachers to artists to C-suite leaders, we explore how people own their authentic leadership, celebrate their triumphs, overcome challenges, and share lessons learned. In today's episode, we are speaking with Ricardo Hernandez. Ricardo is a native of Puerto Rico who moved to the United States in 1979 when his mother joined the U.S. Army Nursing Corps. He attended Anne Arundel Community College before transferring to Salisbury University and earning a Bachelor of Science in Physical Education and Health Fitness in 1997. In 2002, Ricardo changed careers from sales to education, teaching physical education in Prince George's County Public Schools in Maryland. Ricardo transitioned to Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland, serving Bethesda Chevy Chase High School for 8 years as a teacher, assistant athletic director, and assistant principal before moving to Paint Branch High School in 2015 as assistant principal. Ricardo is currently the principal of Seneca Valley High School in Germantown, Maryland. Welcome, Ricardo, to Expressions of Leadership. It is great to have you.
Thank you, Michele. I appreciate the opportunity. This is wonderful.
Now, you moved to the U.S. in the late 70s as an emerging multilingual learner. How did that experience shape your leadership approach?
Well, I think that back then, there wasn't the impressive title of emerging multilingual learner. And we were in a much different place educationally. And what it has done for me now has created a greater advocacy for those students who come to our schools, whether emerging multilingual learners or students that transfer into our school, to be a better advocate for them, knowing that transitions are never easy, knowing that in new environments are never easy. What it has done for me has made the intentionality of bringing folks together and allowing them to see our space and become part of our community has made it a greater emphasis of the work we do in our space to ensure that everyone is included in our community and is felt valued in that space.
And you learned English by watching soap operas. How did that unconventional method influence your adaptability and communication skills?
Well, I learned at a very early age how adults communicate with each other, right or wrong, through soap operas. Language isn't always correct, body tone isn't always correct, but I learned how, for the most part, adults communicate. As an only child, oftentimes my parents would take me out and I would be the sole child with adults around. And so what it did was it made me kind of come out of my comfort zone and communicate with adults and have those conversations and make those connections. And so having that experience and learning language the way I did and seeing what that looked like on TV kind of shaped my conversations early on with other students, but it was different because I was looking at it from an adult lens in terms of conversations rather than a child's lens in terms of the conversations that I was having. So that was challenging at times. So now you fast forward to my leadership style. What that has done is it has allowed me to not sit back and wait for things to happen, but to actually go out and make things happen, get myself in conversations, put myself out there, because that's all I ever knew how to do. As an only child, you have to get yourself out of your shell and put yourself in situations. And so now that's the way I lead. I interject myself. I try to add value to conversations, to situations, because that's sort of what has shaped me and that's sort of what I learned early on.
Also, people are able to benefit from hearing your point of view.
I hope that's the goal.
Well, what inspired your career shift from sales to education, and how did that transition influence your leadership style?
When I graduated school, sales was sort of a means to an end. It afforded me to start my life to kind of start, adulting, I guess you could say. But it wasn't a passion. It wasn't something that I saw myself doing. I didn't see myself sitting behind a desk on a computer, taking calls, making calls. That just wasn't something that interested me or that drove me. And it was my mother-in-law, ironically, who said um, to me, you should really kind of rethink what you're doing and why you're doing it. And through our conversations, she had brought up teaching. Uh, I had at the time a certification as a fitness instructor, and was really into fitness and human mechanics and everything. And when she brought the suggestion up about teaching, I had a double take at first because that wasn't something that I saw myself doing either. But then as I looked more into it, it actually made better sense for me. And so, you have these skills that you have to learn in sales, the cold calls, the persistence of trying to get something accomplished. You move that now into education, and it's sort of the same thing. You have to motivate folks in order to interact and be part of the lesson and be part of the educational environment. And so some of those skills did translate to teaching, but I also found that teaching, eventually coaching, was really a motivating factor in terms of helping people get to their best and fullest potential. And so that was a smoother transition for me because it was also something that I cared about and was passionate about.
And you've held multiple leadership roles across different schools, including being a principal at the largest school building in the state of Maryland and the Eastern Seaboard. What were some key lessons from each stage of your journey?
I think two really that stood out: listening, and not listening just to hear, but listening to understand. Um, Something that a principal told me was, it's important for you to make sure that you hear and understand folks so that they know that you care and that you understand where they're coming from. Because if they don't know that you understand, they won't think that you care or that they're valued. And so for me, listening is a big aspect of that. And then patience. I am a patiently impatient person. I like to make sure that things get done and accomplished, but understand that there are times when things will take time. Even though I don't want to allow that time to happen, I need to allow that time to happen because within that time, things actually change for the better because it's allowed to process, it's allowed to nurture and mature. And that ultimately is the best thing, was when you're able to accomplish something and it really is what you're looking forward to doing it, and it's not just haphazard because you weren't patient enough. So I
Mhm.
think those two things have really been the aspects of the work and leadership that I've learned. And then finally, I would say the third actually is connections, really making sincere, intentional connections with the people that I work with, not just for the work we do, but for who they are and for what they bring to the table. I think those three aspects, um, listening, patience, and connections, have really been the things that I've learned in my leadership journey that have helped me get to where I am.
You're speaking to something I think about a lot when it comes to leadership, which is we are human beings, not human doings. And we need to take a moment, and that might come in with that patience as well, to stop and connect. And that means making them a more transformational versus just a transactional interaction. If you could take just 10% of your day, 10%, and make that more transformational instead of transactional, think about what a difference that would make.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to be able to get more out of someone who feels connected than from someone who's disconnected.
Mhm. You're the only Hispanic male principal at this level in your district. What does that mean to you, and what challenges and opportunities come with that?
Uh, it's very humbling. I never pictured myself in this situation. Um, I never saw myself here. And so to be in this position, let alone the only Hispanic male, can get daunting at times. Um, there's a lot of pressure that can come with that. I'm asked to do a lot of things because I'm the one and only. And that can get burdensome as well. I think the stress and pressure not only comes from being a high school principal in one of the largest school systems in the country, but also just being the one Hispanic male at the secondary level. Just I don't want to screw up. I don't want to make mistakes to not just make myself and my school look bad, but also a culture look bad. And so that at times can be a little overwhelming. But that's part of what we do. It's part of what I do. And so I just make sure that the decisions I make are always rooted in the best interest of students and that I carry myself accordingly.
What do you see as the key challenges in recruiting Hispanic men into the field of education?
I think it's the perception of the profession. I think typically a Hispanic male is looked at, they're doing the labor intensive work. Right? I mean, they have their own business in home restoration or carpentry or plumbing, and to be an educator is different than what we've typically seen from a Hispanic male. And I think it's breaking down that perception that can be difficult. And I think it comes from our intentional work as educators to show the avenues by which students, Hispanic male students, can not just get into the profession, but what the avenues are after you teach, whether it's leadership or it's curriculum. There's so many avenues that a student can get into once they become a teacher that if we don't highlight those, then you don't see the possibilities, then you won't even entertain teaching. And I
Mhm.
think that's where we need to do a better job of really highlighting the work, not just to the school building, but across the school system.
Well, what needs to change to encourage more diverse leadership in general in education?
I think it's the recruitment. I think it's getting out not just at the high school level, but at the college level. And again, showing college students the possibilities in education and what um, they could do if they become an educator. Counseling, athletics, administration, HR, you name it. Education has the ability to really allow someone to branch out into so many different fields. But if we don't highlight those, and again, it goes back to if we don't have intentional work to spread that knowledge out, then we're going to suffer as a whole, because oftentimes our diversity is what makes us better. And without that diversity, we're not getting the best out of a school system.
So, how do you balance the pressure of this representation with your personal leadership style?
It goes back to um, the connections, connecting with folks for in terms of my leadership style, making sure that I am intentional about the conversations I have with our teachers of color, black or brown, and how do I then support their growth and show them the ways that they can kind of move out of the teaching realm if that's what they want to do, and just show them those opportunities and then bring them in on conversations, expose them to those opportunities, and then allow them to grow within that. And I think that's something that I do with all of the people that I work with, regardless of color, regardless of race, gender, is I try to involve everyone in the work to highlight what they do because everyone's doing great work. But if no one's there to kind of push them and put them in a space to be seen, no one will ever know it. And so that's something that I take great pains to do, is to make sure that voices are heard, work is valued and represented in all aspects of this building and in this county.
You're touching upon the importance of role modeling, whether that's how you act as a role model for others or elevating others as role models. What role models, if any, have influenced your leadership journey?
I had a principal that hired me at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School. Her name was Karen Lockard, and she was an assistant principal at the time. And I was transitioning from Prince George's County Public Schools to Montgomery County Public Schools, looking for a physical education position. Bethesda Chevy Chase had an opening. I went in, and the school colors are navy blue and gold. I had a navy blue suit on with a gold tie. And from that moment that I stepped in the doors for that interview, she just noticed that and was impressed by that, and she said, "You're interviewing for a teaching position in physical education." I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am, but I'm interviewing for a teaching position. It just so happens that I teach physical education." And that just kind of blew her away. And from that moment on, she kind of role modeled for me what I'm doing now, is elevating the work, acknowledging the work, and highlighting what we do and how we do things. And really, it was the conversations that we had about, what leadership opportunities I had and what I needed to do. And little by little, she kind of kept chipping away of saying, "Okay, it's now time for you to go get your master's. Get your master's and get a certificate in administration." I said, "Why would I do that?" She said, "Because you'll be an administrator one day." I said, "No, I'm just going to keep teaching. This is what I like to do." She goes, "Just do me a favor and do it. It'll be good for you anyway." And in time, I became an assistant athletic director. I was the department chair, all leadership roles. And then when I graduated, she came to me and said, "Hey, we've got a position open as an assistant principal. I want you to apply." It's like, "I'm not ready to apply." She goes, "You're ready to apply. You've been doing all this department chair work. You've been assistant athletic director. You've had student teachers. I keep putting your name out there. It's time for you to now represent yourself and do it." I'm like, "Okay." And then she hired me, and now 13 years later, I'm the principal at Seneca Valley High School.
Just an amazing, amazing journey. Well, we've covered
And
some powerful topics so far, but there's a lot more to explore. So stick around. We'll be right back after this short break. Love what you're hearing? Hit that follow button wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And be sure to connect with us on Instagram and YouTube at Expressions of Leadership. Thanks for staying with us. You're listening to Expressions of Leadership. Let's continue our conversation with Ricardo Hernandez. You emphasize accountability and high standards. How do you implement that in a way that motivates both the students and staff?
well, I think this year I'm in a unique position. Um, we've been fortunate that we've gotten the staffing in place that next year we're really looking to make some big changes. I say that with high expectations plus high supports, you'll get high results. And so that is something that has started to motivate teachers in the building about the work that we're about to do. And so we're really kind of focusing on working with our students that need math and reading um, interventions, our emerging multilingual learners that we know are going to need interventions, really focusing on our 9th and 10th grade students to build the true foundation of work and skills and independence that they're going to need as they move on to 11th and 12th grade. We've been able to look at our staffing so that we can lower our class sizes in our 9th and 10th grade classes to allow for that better, smaller group setting, that 1 to 30 ratio, where we know we can have a lot more impact along with our supporting intervention and math and reading teachers. And so really that's kind of started to get people's juices flowing. because now they're starting to see that we're investing in making this a better educational environment for the students. And so now the teachers are motivated to bring in new ideas, whether it's through AI or if it's through, experiential learning. They're really starting to grasp the high supports aspect of the high expectations plus high supports equals high results. And so that's been exciting. I think the administrative team that I have, I'm very fortunate to have 6 great educational leaders that are also championing the work. And that goes by fostering not only their expertise, but also having them be a part of the vision for our school. And so when have the ability to have this administrative team really cohesively work on a vision for the school, it really does trickle down through the staff and into the students to really motivate everyone for what's ahead.
And what is that vision for Seneca Valley High School?
So in the state of Maryland, schools are rated on a 5-star system. And so right now we're 3 stars. And so my vision is to have us be a 4-star school in the next couple years and eventually get to that 5-star status. That's also the vision of our superintendent. And so really when you can put, I guess, a numerical aspect to the work from a 3 to a 4, when people have that goal in mind and they see it, they know that they can achieve it. And then we're putting in the work by the infrastructure so that they can get there. And so the vision is really to get us to that 4-star status in the next year or two. We're close. We're real close. And we might be able to hit it a year from now. But then to really go above and beyond and hit that 5-star status. And what that's really going to mean is that our kids are going to be ready for higher education, whether it's a 2-year school, community college, a 4-year institution, the world of work, civil service, military service. They're really going to be prepared foundationally for what's ahead of them by utilizing the resources that we have in place, and then also create their own resources once they leave us so that their success can continue.
And in what ways do you include your staff on building out this vision and enlisting them in ultimately manifesting it?
So it's interesting. I am not a techie person. I will. Everyone knows that I'm dating technology. I haven't decided to engage technology yet. I don't know if I'm gonna get married to it, but we're just dating. We're just in that fundamentals, and everyone understands that. But I write everything down. I go back to pen and paper. I write down my ideas. I write down my vision. And then along the way in our building, we have whiteboards, and I will just write everything out so that someone can walk in and see exactly where we are going to go, how we're going to get there, and what we're going to do. And so I did that about 6 weeks ago and then brought my administrative team in to see it. I stayed here one night. It was a Monday night. And Tuesday morning, they walked in. They're like, "What in the world happened?" And it was sort of like a vision dump, for lack of a better term, of where I saw us, why we needed to get there, what our data points were, and who we need to focus on. And when they could see it and they could see it written out, they started adding to it ideas of how to get there and what we needed to do, configuring the building differently, utilizing spaces differently, utilizing our staff differently, staff that could do this work that we have in-house. It's just a matter of kind of moving them from one department to another to get that done. And it really started to energize them, and it really started to drive their work as well. And so what I told them was, this is all of us. Let's bring it to the table. And we created a big idea document, and everything goes into that document so that we can all see where we're coming from. We can all take from it, add to it, and when need to, resource it to then use it for the next idea that comes up. And so really it's been impactful, actually. And so as I go to different spaces and I write different ideas down, people take pictures and then they put it in the big idea document. And I have a little journal that I have all these things written in so that when I need to reference them, I can. But it's a visual that everyone sees, from our director to our associate superintendent, to our superintendent, and that when they walk in, they know where we are, where we want to be, and how we are going to get there. And now they have the buy-in because they see the vision, they see the work, and they know where our focus is and what we're trying to do.
Fantastic. You're including people from all areas and levels to collectively build a vision of excellence for your school. So they all have a vested interest in making it happen.
Yeah, and I also think it's our community. And so some of the things that I've done since I've started here, last summer we had a community block party. It was a Seneca Valley summer block party. We invited community stakeholders, we invited families to come in just to enjoy the day here at Seneca Valley. On an evening, we had food vendors, not educational. I mean, there was, vendors that provided resources, but really it was to foster that Seneca Valley is the hub of this community, and we want you to engage in it. We reimagined our back to school night. Instead of having a parent go through all the classes of their student, we had our community partners again have resources for our families that came in. We had all of our teachers situated on one or two floors, and parents could just go from one to the other and speak to them informally in that respect. Um, we had an open house where we allowed parents to come in for the beginning of the day to kind of shadow their students. And then we did community circles to engage them in the work that we're doing and how we can better foster communication with them. What can we do to better bring them into our community space? Our parent-teacher conferences, again, went from a very prescribed kind of, calendar setting to that open house setting where they could come in and go from their science teacher to the math teacher, no set agenda. They had 10 minutes to talk about their student. If they needed more time, we allowed them to do that. They would make an appointment with the counselor and the teacher. So we're really trying to engage the community differently so that they feel more connected to the school than they have been in the past, and to foster not just the educational environment, but the social emotional environment of what a school can bring to the community.
Inviting the community to contribute to that vision really brings it to the next level. It's infusing more energy and momentum into its ultimate fulfillment.
Absolutely.
You've said you have to earn the privilege of walking across the stage for graduation. How do you instill that sense of responsibility in students?
Well, I think, ironically, this goes back to a book that my wife and I had to read with our youngest son, who now will be 18 in a couple weeks, and it was Love and Logic. I know in my heart of hearts that all of our young people have to graduate high school and they need to move on. Logically speaking, I also know that there is a minimum requirement that they have to meet by the time we get to graduation. And that's where that holding that line and that standard comes into place. And so in the state of Maryland, on the day of graduation, I am asked by one of our Board of Education members, do I certify that all these students have met the requirements to meet the Maryland requirements of our high school diploma? And if I can't stand up there and say yes, then that's my integrity. And so that's a conversation that I have with all of our seniors as they get close to graduation, is that my integrity is on the line, and I need to make sure that you're ready for the next step. I understand that it's time for you to move on, but in life, you have to hit all the marks in order for that to happen. And so we're going to make sure that we support you in that process. We have everything in place that'll help you get there, understanding that sometimes you will come up short. And if you do, unfortunately, it happens, but we're also then going to help you get there, because you can also still walk in August, and that is still a possibility. You can still get your diploma. You just didn't meet that mark. And that's hard. It's hard for me as an educator. It's hard for me as a parent, knowing, having a son that's graduated high school, soon to be college, one that's going to graduate high school also. I know what that means to a family, and it means a lot. But I also know that my integrity and the work that I do is also on the line in terms of making sure that they're ready for that next step. And so it can get difficult right around graduation. Unfortunately, sometimes I have to have that conversation with one or two parents, and that's never easy. And that's where at times I will have to take off my administrator hat and take on the hat of a parent and console and have those, hard conversations. But I always tell them that we're not done yet. There's something else we can do. It just wasn't this time at that point. But here's what else we can do to make sure that you still have that experience and that you do get what you deserve, which is that diploma, and that we're able to provide everything else that we can that comes along with that.
Well, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll unpack how Ricardo fosters open dialogue and drives meaningful change. We'll be right back. Are you looking to connect with an audience passionate about leadership, growth, and success? Become a sponsor of Expressions of Leadership and align your brand with inspiring conversations that make an impact. Contact us at letstalk@expressionsofleadership.com to explore sponsorship opportunities. We're back on Expressions of Leadership. I'm your host, Michele Kawamoto Perry. We're joined by special guest Ricardo Hernandez, who's been sharing valuable perspectives on education and leadership. You're known for straightforward communication and courageous conversations, as we just spoke about earlier before the break. How do you foster open, honest dialogue in your leadership?
I think it goes back to what I had said earlier. It's those connections, understanding people, understanding where they're coming from. One of the books I had my instructional leadership team read this year was Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. Being able to understand where people are coming from and the lens by which they have a conversation with you, whether they're angry, they're upset, they're hurt, they're sad, and us as educational leaders being able to connect with them to then help support them is invaluable, right? And so when we are having those conversations, to me, and I get pushback from other educators about courageous conversations, but in the business world, there aren't courageous conversations. In the business world, you're having conversations about numbers and how do you move forward. That's exactly what we do in education. We talk about students, grades, how we help them move forward, and what are we putting in place to help them achieve their best. Same as you would have in a business setting. And so for me, it's not to say that it's a cold business-like conversation, but it's not that courageous conversation because it's what can we do to support you? What is it that is happening? And how can we help you make adjustments to better the situation? And so just being able to connect with folks so that they understand that I'm not coming to them from a place of insincerity or aggression, but more of sincerity and support makes the dialogue very different. And ultimately, it can get tough, and it will be tough, but when we come out of it together, we come out of it together. And that's the most important piece.
And how do you get people comfortable with these conversations?
Well, for instructional leaders, it's just giving them practice. It's having them sit in with you when you're having those conversations. I think with teachers or adults, again, it goes back to the connection piece. I can't emphasize that enough. I think if people don't care what you know unless they know you care, and that's the aspect that I want our instructional leaders to understand, is that the caring piece, and not caring to be dismissive, but caring to be sincere. And I don't always get it right. Let's just be fair. But I do work really hard at trying to make those sincere connections of caring so that people know where I'm coming from.
And you said that investing in adult capital is key to student success. How do you ensure that teachers are well equipped to support their students?
So I was never a big reader. Just was not in my DNA. But as a leader of this building, I have worked hard to ensure that our instructional leadership team, so myself, my 6 assistant principals, my 22 or so instructional leaders, department heads, are equipped with the ability to move teachers. Because if teachers are in a good space, kids will be in a good space, and we know that we will get movement from our kids. And so I started with working with my administrative team. So last summer we read Sam Parker's Lead Simply, which has 3, simple tenets. It's model, connect, involve. And how do we do that as an administrative team with our instructional leaders? And then with our instructional leadership team, which consists of around 30 people, we read Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. And again, human connection. And now we're reading Elena Aguilar's Arise, the Art of Transformational Leadership. All this is so that we as instructional leaders can support our teachers better, support our staff better, so that they're in a better space to then support our students. And so that's really been our focus. When you're in a building of 2,500 students with 300 staff members, being able to move that many people takes time and intentional work. And so I'm starting from the top down by building the capacity of myself, my administrative team, my instructional leadership team, so that then they can support the teachers and in turn support the students.
And what qualities do you look for in teachers and administrators when you're building a strong leadership team?
So it's funny, we're in hiring season right now, and I have 2 basic rules when we hire. Who is the best person to put in front of our students? Um, Teaching wise, human dynamic wise, who is that best person? And then second, how does that person affect your department? What are they bringing to the other adults in the department? And if you focus on those 2 things, if you hit 1 and then go to 2, you're going to hire someone that's going to be impactful in this building and in this space. And fortunately, I have made some mistakes, as no one is perfect, but I've been on the righter side of good than not by using those 2 simple rules. In terms of my administrative team, I want someone that's going to push back on me. I need an accountability partner, and I've got 6 of them, 7 with my school business administrator, who push back, and I want that pushback because it's in those conversations that we get a better outcome. I don't want people who are going to agree with everything I say. I don't want someone who's going to tell me everything I want to hear. That's not the work that we're in. The work that we're in is to have that dialogue, to have those conversations, to pull the best out of both.
So, how do you handle staff members who might be resistant to accountability?
I think for some folks, it's hard to know that they're not right. It's hard for them to hear negative things about what they're doing because they've been doing it for so long that it's just commonplace now. And so really it's providing them all of the data that they need to kind of see it from a different lens. And it takes time to do that because some folks have been in this building for 15 plus years when this building looked very different, was a very different size. And now, because we've grown exponentially in the last 4 years, we went from a building of 1,200 to a building of 2,400 in the span of 4 years. And that growth, not just in student population, but in staff population, is daunting. And when you're not always able to make changes incrementally to withstand that growth, all of a sudden you're kind of hit with a very different problem. We never scaled our work to meet the demands of the size, but now we can't keep doing the same work and expect the same results. It's not how we are now. We have a very different student population. We have very different educational needs than we did 4 years ago. And so it's really presenting them the information in a digestible way so that they can understand it, they can see it. Sometimes you have to let them sit on it and let them come to the conclusion. And that comes through conversations, that comes through different viewpoints. There's an art to it. I'm not a master at it whatsoever, but it's that timepiece, and it's that, when you see it, you hear it, you feel it, then you understand it. And it takes time.
I think that goes back to what you were talking about at the very beginning of our conversation with patience and having that patience in the process.
Absolutely.
Well, making tough decisions is also part of leadership. Can you share an example of a difficult decision that you had to make and how you navigated it?
Well, last year we had an unfortunate situation where a student, it was graduation. They felt that they were going to get everything that they needed to done by the deadline that we had set, and it wasn't going to happen. And so rather than have this student go through the motions and get frustrated, I kind of had to shut that down a little early. And that was not something that their administrator liked, or their counselor liked. But I'm looking at this student who's quickly unraveling with the amount of stress and pressure that they had in order to meet this deadline with all these requirements that they had to do because they didn't pass all the classes when they should have the first time around. And so now you're looking at this amount of work in a very short span of time that became very consuming and overwhelming. And for the mental health of the student and our staff too, who was bending over backwards in order to support um, this young person, I kind of had to stop everything short of what the expectation was. And that was not something that was meant well. Ultimately, it proved to be the right choice because the student kind of saw what was happening to them and realized what they were getting themselves into, what was happening, and that they would have been further back if they had continued at that pace. And so that was one of those situations where, unfortunately, I had to make a leadership decision in terms of how we would proceed, understanding that by that student not walking on that day, it was affecting my numbers, my graduation numbers. But that was a risk I was willing to take because ultimately I knew, just looking at this student and looking at everything that was happening, that would be in their best interest. And I would take that hit, I guess you could say, on my numbers because I knew that it was better for them than it was for us.
Well, how do you approach decision making when there is no clear right answer?
I tried to use facilitative leadership. Um, there always has to be an answer. Through facilitative leadership, we bring things to either the administrative team or the instructional leadership team. We talk through the problem. It could be a problem of practice. We talk through the problem, we, whatever the case may be, and start to build consensus as to a solution. Understanding that ultimately, with 30 people, you're going to have 30 different viewpoints. You might get it down to 4 viewpoints. I might get it down to 2 viewpoints. And then in essence, I might have to make a decision between one or the other. And at that point, that's where I weigh the benefit for the students more so than anything else. And then once the decision is made, it's going back to that same 30 people to say, are we all in agreement? This is what we're doing, why we're doing this, and this is how we're going to communicate it out to the greater good. That can take time. It's that patience piece. I could go in and say, this is the decision I made, and this is why I made it. But that meant that 30 people didn't have a voice. 30 people didn't feel valued, and 30 people aren't going to stand behind me when it's now presented. And that doesn't always work well. There are times when it has to happen, clearly. But more than not, it has to be the voice of 30 rather than the voice of one.
Mhm.
And that takes patience.
We've been talking about the challenges and opportunities in education leadership. Up next, we'll explore what the future holds. Stay tuned. Great leadership starts with great culture. At the Forward Project, we help organizations transform their workplace culture and develop leaders who inspire, engage, and drive meaningful change. Ready to take your team to the next level? Visit www.theforwardproject.co to learn more. Welcome back to Expressions of Leadership. Let's jump right back into this engaging conversation with Ricardo Hernandez on leadership, vision, and impact. Ricardo, as you look ahead, what do you see for the next generation of students, educators, and school leaders?
I actually think that what we're doing right now is educating our students for jobs that haven't been created yet. We're educating them for a workplace and positions that haven't even been thought of. And so we really need to be able to think outside the box in terms of what we're teaching them and how we're teaching them, because in the real world, that's what they're going to see. And so the more prepared they are for that type of environment, the better suited they're going to be to adjust to it, thrive in it, and make it their own.
So, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing high school education in the next 5 to 10 years?
Technology, I think AI. I think that because education has been so structured for so long, that when you introduce AI and there's no clear plan of how to utilize it in an educational environment yet, I think people are working on it, that it actually kind of stops people from trying to engage in it because they don't have an understanding of it. And if they don't understand it, then they don't feel comfortable with being involved in it. Teachers, educators struggle at times to allow students to kind of drive the educational environment because it's a loss of control. When ultimately it's through those students' experiences and through their knowledge and their ability to use technology that we could really thrive in an environment that is inclusive of that. But that's really hard for some folks to grapple and wrap their heads around it. And I think as we look at educators who are in their early stages who've been exposed to this technology, when they come in, they're better equipped to adapt to it. Where some of our more seasoned veterans can struggle. And so we really have to be intentional in the supports that we have in place for them to engage in the technology, engage in the work, so that they not only feel comfortable in it, but then are able to utilize it better for our students. And then making sure that our younger educators have, the classroom management and the connection piece that is essential in helping students move, because we also know that young people are very connected to devices and not people. And so we have to make sure that they have those skills to make those connections with the students and not just the technology.
And with that technology rapidly changing, expanding, how do you then see high schools evolving over this next decade?
So Seneca Valley is truly a comprehensive high school in the terms of we have dual enrollment, advanced placement, international baccalaureate classes. We have early access, where early access college, where a student can take their 11th and 12th grade year at a community college and get an associate's degree and a high school diploma. We have a robust CTE program where students can be industry certified in automotive technician, carpentry, computer science, networking, operations. That is a truly comprehensive high school. We have certified clinical medical assistants. We have a pharmacy tech program. I mean, we really have the ability for students to come into the space, utilize the education, and walk out of here with a high school diploma and industry certifications and be ready to go into the world of work. And the great piece about it is students can kind of try things out before they leave us. So they can really kind of hone in their interests by the time they graduate. And if it's not what they have an industry certification in, they can use that industry certification, have a job, and then pursue their passion. And so really what we have to look at is how do high schools adjust our educational programs to meet those needs and meet the growing needs of our students who may not want to go to college, but want to go into work and find a really impactful profession that is going to kind of meet their goals in terms of a family, work life, all those pieces that they may not find any other way. And so really I see education kind of embracing that CTE mindset of getting kids prepared for next level thinking before they even leave high school so that they really do have a lot more opportunities once they leave high school in terms of what they want to do.
So, on a personal note, after 25 years of marriage to your wife, Kate, and raising two sons, how has being a father influenced your leadership style?
I think it's the biggest lens I use on a daily basis. When I engage with my students, I see that fatherly figure kind of come out in the conversations that I have and in the rationalization for the work I do. Because if they don't see it, they just see me as another adult telling them right and wrong. And so really it's sort of showing them the work I do through a different lens. And that includes parents too. Um, when my oldest graduated in 2021 from high school, that was the first time as a high school administrator that I had a graduating class for 4 years along the same time as my son was also experiencing high school. And so it gave me a very different lens, and it actually allowed me to be a better parent to our son Ryan and Casey, as I was also a better administrator to that class of 2021 because I was able to use the work at home and at work to help develop both. And it was really kind of awe-inspiring to have that experience. And I've always used it, but it was never as impactful as it was at that point. And now, 4 years later, I'm in that same place with our son Casey, who's graduating um, a week, actually 2 days after the class of Seneca Valley will graduate. And it's that same kind of just life-changing experience of being a parent and being the educator where the two worlds collide and how I use both skills to help each of them grow.
And looking ahead in your own career, what's next for you?
I just love my work. I love being at Seneca Valley High School. I love being the principal of Seneca Valley High School. The Germantown community is amazing community. And so right now in my second year, I'm settling in and just enjoying what I'm doing and putting all my time and effort work-wise into this space and into what we have to do to help our community and help our students grow. And then also enjoying seeing our sons grow and where their next steps are, from our son Ryan, who's moving to Chicago to pursue his career, and to our son Casey, who's now deciding on which college he's going to go, and really kind of making sure that they're set for success and that Kate and I are able to enjoy time with them and with ourselves as our work grows.
And what legacy do you hope to leave behind as a school leader?
Just one of someone who cared and was invested in our students, in our staff, in our building, and that I wasn't always right and I made mistakes, but I did my best every day. And along the way, good things happened, and that's all I could hope for.
Well, that brings us to our final segment of the Expressions of Leadership show, when we ask our guests about an advice question and a fun question. So let's start with the advice question. What leadership advice would you give to aspiring principals?
Be willing to extend yourself, be willing to be comfortably uncomfortable, and understanding that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. You have supports in place that will help you along the way. And being humble. Um, this job can take a lot out of you. And understanding that you are um, here to support others. And the greatest thing you could do is to be that patient, nurturing listener that everyone needs, but also understanding that you need someone to do that for you. And so making sure that you can be humble enough to rely on your supports, because you can't do it all, and you won't have all the answers, and you need to be humble enough to rely on others to support you as well.
And for the fun question, would you rather travel to the past or the future, and why?
I could go in the past, because there are some times in the past that were really fun. But the future is going to be incredible. When we look at what possibilities are ahead of us, that would actually be a really fun time to go into, to kind of see what's ahead and what is upcoming, understanding that some of the things we do now will affect that. And so that's really, I think, where I would like to go is to the future, to kind of see where I end up, or my kids end up, or some of the kids that I've worked with at school have ended up, and where our family kind of, settles down. That's really where I think I would like to go, is into the future, to check that out.
Ricardo, thank you for joining us on Expressions of Leadership and sharing your stories, your ideas, your advice, and your wisdom on education and leadership.
Thank you, Michelle. Again, I appreciate this opportunity.
And thank you to our audience for tuning in and spending your time with us today. If you haven't done so already, make sure to click on that follow button so you don't miss out on future episodes. Have a guest you'd like us to interview? Questions, ideas, or just want to say hello? You can reach us at letstalk@expressionsofleadership.com or connect with us on Instagram or YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks to our amazing team behind the scenes for making this podcast possible, including our sound engineer, Graham Palmer, and my chief encourager and advisor, Jeremiah Higgins. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you soon. Take care.